consumed by fear, unsettled, and rob themselves of such precious life energy. Others go through life with a smile, brimming with self-confidence, beaming with happiness and contentment, not understanding in the least the worries of the anxious. Dear readers, you are now wondering why this is so. Everyone has had a childhood that was more or less formative for them, but a bad childhood says nothing about how anxious a person actually is. Many circumstances contribute to this. For example, the environment and one's own living conditions. If I live in a high-rise building with an elevator and I have a so-called claustrophobia every day, it can become a burden just to see the elevator, but it can also help me overcome my fear. Without fear, our ancestors would not have survived. Fear warns and makes alert at the same time. It ensured our ancestors' existence, their survival. The saber-toothed tiger was a real threat, just like predatory cats, wolves, poisonous spiders, and snakes. If people are afraid of snakes, it is not imaginary, but evolutionary. Snakes had and still have a venom that can be deadly for us humans. These primal fears and phobias of people go back to times when it was necessary for survival to protect themselves from this real danger. If people at that time had no fear of dangerous animals, they would not have survived. So those who had no fear of natural forces or dangerous animals died. Fear was life-saving and became ingrained in people over generations. Thus, fears were passed on and inherited by the next generation. Anyone who suffers from a fear of cats today can be sure that the primal fear of the saber-toothed tiger is behind it. However, fear not only has an evolutionary background, but also a protective function. A Portuguese-American neurologist, for example, described a patient who no longer seemed to feel any fear because of a calcification deep inside her brain. Her fear center was virtually chronically shut off, so she always appeared cheerful and accommodating. She let strangers hug her and chatted with everyone. This fearlessness has not only advantages, it can be exploited very quickly and become a problem. Our body is prepared in a dangerous situation for a possible fight or flight, so a reaction of the body to fear is a normal process. When the heart races with fear and tension, the muscles are better supplied with blood and breathing is accelerated so that the oxygen content in the blood then increases. However, if the tension, for example the tightening of the hands and rapid breathing persist for a longer period of time, the body cannot distinguish whether there is actually danger or not, and a reaction develops in which it discharges. A panic attack is the result. Genes also play a major role in anxiety and are significant for its development. The inheritance of anxious genes is estimated at about 30 to 40%. Anxiety disorders have been observed simultaneously more often in identical twins than in fraternal twins. If one family member has an anxiety disorder, it is more likely that children and later generations will also suffer from an anxiety disorder than in families that are psychologically unaffected. Some patients with panic disorders have a gene in them that is mutated and thus altered in its activity. Scientists have found that this genetic alteration can trigger uncontrolled fear sensations. Mice that carry this gene also behave extremely over-anxious. If you recognize yourself and know that you are one of those people who are always anxious, constantly worrying and sensitive, you can also be a little happy, even if it is not really comforting, because these are the people who are not the most boring. They have exciting things to tell and more imagination. Famous personalities also suffered from anxiety disorders. Let's mention Goethe, Brecht, Vivaldi, and even Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis. One form of anxiety disorder is panic disorder, which affects approximately 4% of people around the world during their lifetime. Panic attacks occur suddenly and for no apparent reason. They are characterized by rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, choking sensation, or shortness of breath. Patients are drenched in sweat and tremble all over their bodies or feel as if they are about to faint. In principle, however, there is not just one trigger. Scientists think these fears often stem from trauma in early childhood. The loss of a parent, experiences with violence, sexual abuse, neglect, or parents who abused alcohol can promote the development of panic disorders or the development of mental illnesses in general. Fear, however, should also be seen as an opportunity, the chance to turn the current precarious situation into a fuller, happier life. Fear, in particular.